as the globe marks World Water Day. This falls into Human Rights Month in South Africa. Access to safe drinking water and sanitation internationally recognized as a human right. However, you've seen there in the reporting from today and in recent days suggesting that different parts of the country simply have nothing to celebrate, as you've just heard there from the experiences of those living in Taung, experiencing continuous and long interruptions of clean drinking water supply. Let's continue on this theme, get you a different perspective, bring in our guest in studio, Phakiso Mataitsane, who is the tech leader at Waterfela. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and joins us now in our studios. Great to see you, and thanks for popping by at the SABC News channel. It's a bit sobering to take in what we've just watched from my colleague Zeblon in Taung, but let me just start by understanding what you do as Waterfela and how that might help perhaps even the residents like those we've seen in Taung.
Yeah, I think under the video that we just saw, it's just heartbreaking to see 30 years into our democracy how our people are living in terms of access to water. I think the taps are there. When we looked at statistics, it says the taps are there, but it's the access to water itself and clean water. So there is water. You could hear Mama saying at 4 or more, but they can get the water, but the water is not cleaned. So I'll give you a view in terms of what we do at Waterfela. We provide water in cartons, not like normal plastic, because we know that in terms of sustainability, we have to look at alternatives. Single-use plastics amount to they generate 1 million single-use plastics in the world every minute, which is also ending up in our waters and then making sure the water then is not clean, and which we could get it from the rivers, and it's not clean because of plastic. But also what we have found is that we looked at water beyond that. We said, what are the solutions that we can bring forward to accelerate the process of helping people, like in Taung? So we looked at atmospheric water generation, which is one, which you generate water from air. The technology has been there for years.
How does that work? Just very briefly, sorry for interrupting you there. So you and I are breathing air all the time. You're saying you could extract H2O, I suppose, from the air molecules and make it drinkable.
And make it drinkable. Actually, we were, 2 days ago, we were at the black industrialization session, and people could taste the water. And one of the people from Joburg Water said, this water tastes amazing. The key part to that is that we got humidity, which humidity has particles. We can take from humidity, and in South Africa we need about 20% humidity, but in South Africa our average is 54%. So based on that, you can have these machines running to make sure that we generate water from air.
Wow. And I suppose you'd have a great time in places like Durban where humidity is
when it's high, and Cape Town and PE, you are looking at 76% there. So you're looking where the humidity is high, it's easier to generate water. Then the second part is that you can then take, for an example, in homes, you can have these mobile units that can be set up so that it can give people at least access to water. And the electricity usage is at like 450 watts per liter. So it's close to less than a fridge in terms of running. So it's something that can be deployed everywhere and make sure that, and we can come with small mobile units and bigger units to supply and help the communities like that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you about, scaling this in order to help not just the household, but sometimes a community, who knows, even an industrial area. How further down your own prospects is something like that, unless you're already doing it?
Definitely it can go on an industrial level. I think there's two solutions in terms of when we looked at water, like we looked at the atmospheric water creation, but we also have a technology locally from Aquacura. This technology takes the water like we saw from the rivers, and then we purify that water so that, you remember the mother said they drink the water as it is. So through our system, which runs on solar, you can run it on solar or on a generator or on power, you can then clean up this water. That's an alternative. We call it almost zero. So the reason is why we call it almost zero is to say, how about we take water to the people at almost zero? You had a difference in there. It was the conversation around people who have access to money can buy electricity. So what if we could give people at almost zero? We looked at the figures. We were looking at 0.0175 cents in terms of per liter. So if we can get to that level, and most companies have what they call social responsibility, and they have money around that. If we can use it to give people yesterday was Human Rights Day. How about we get those systems to actually help government, because we can see where government is and how we can help government in terms of giving back to the communities.
Yeah. I wonder if there's anything else that comes up for you when it comes to just how residents generally can make the water last longer. I mean, if you live in any Johannesburg suburb, typically people use the water once. And we know in some instances, in fact, you could use the water multiple times, even if it's not for your own ingestion, so to speak. So speak to us about that, about ways in which the water we do receive, whether through our systems or through the heavens, can last longer.
Yeah, I think this is, and the interesting part is that the technology is already here.
Yeah.
We have the technology which has been developed and engineered locally in South Africa, and which we can say that we can deploy these solutions that can take that water that we've been using and clean it and make sure that so we always look in water in terms of the blue drop and the green drop. When you talk about the blue drop is the one that we drink.
Right.
It's fresh. And the green drop, in terms of taking from that green drop as well, reusing that water, cleaning that water and making sure that it can be used for other purposes. Because from the green drop, you can use it to do what? For toilets, for example. And then we then have enough blue drop water in terms of the system.
Interesting. Depending who you ask about where we stand when it comes to our water provision in this country, you get different responses. Of course, government wants us to believe that as much as can be done is being done, and we're not at crisis point. But we've spoken to many other people, including researchers, who say to us, well, in fact, fixing our issues is going to take years, even as things stand. Given the amount of time you spend thinking about solutions in this space, where are you on that spectrum about where we are as we mark this World Water Day?
I think marking today it has opened up my eyes. I mean, looking at a story like that. And 3 days ago, they said there was a hospital in Limpopo where they haven't had water for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So imagine a hospital without water. I mean, you can understand the ripple effects of that. So when you look at that, we have serious issues in terms of water, and it's not decades away. So if you look at statistics from Forbes, they tell you about in 2050, 3 billion people will have no access or minimum access to clean and fresh drinkable water.
Which is very soon, actually.
Which is very soon,
yeah.
But that's Forbes. So you get certain researches, they said in the next decade. But if you look at even in Forbes, most of the researchers are looking at also economies like Netherlands, like Asia, and all in terms of they're not looking at Africa in itself. We already have issues in Africa. So for us, it's not 10 years down the line. We're talking the same energy that is being put on electricity should be put on water. Actually, much more, because you can sleep without electricity, but you definitely need water.
Absolutely.
That's why we call it Waterfela.
Oh, okay. All right. That's where the name comes from. Good to hear. And speaking about Waterfela, I mean, you were very specific to speak about how you package this particular resource, which I think is very interesting. We live in the Southern Hemisphere. Sometimes we go through extreme heat conditions, which affects this thing that we're trying to contain. So, and I imagine those are the sort of things that you're considering when you think about how we can package this and make sure it reaches its intended beneficiaries.
Yeah, I think on the packaging on Waterfela, this is not a new innovation. It's been there. It's been there for a while. You've been drinking milk from a carton before, so it's just to convert water into that. What it gives you is in terms of, if you look at it, the recycling part of the carton is very high. So we're looking at about 8% of plastic get recycled. But of cartons, we're looking at 70%. So, and actually, why is that? You can look at it, it's economics. You get 40 cents per kilogram per kilo for plastic, you get 1.40 per kilogram of carton, which can be converted into other uses. Once they get that from impact, they turn it into dust, and turning into dust, that is used to create roof sheet. There's a company in Kempton Park which then converts that into roof sheets. So you are providing a full sustainable system instead of just drinking once and then moving on.
Sure, fascinating. It does lend us to a conversation around affordability though. Getting these major bulk water system projects going is going to cost trillions of rand. This is word from the president, not even from me. But of course, we're working on a different scale here. Nonetheless, it's going to be incredibly important to make sure that this is accessible even to people in Taung in the Northwest.
Yeah, and you see in Taung in the Northwest, you'll find that there's mining companies which actually have a social responsibility. So if they were to take their funds, so one minister recently talked about how about we consolidate all these funds. Everyone has social responsibility fund, they use it for this, they use it for that. But if you consolidate it mostly in terms of water, how could in a mining town or in an area where there's a mine, then there's a shortage of water there? So that water should be cleaned from the mine and make sure that people have drinking water. Do you understand? And the funds are there in terms of from entities to say they have money available, but they're using them for other initiatives. But the key part now, as we mark World Water Day, is to say, how about we put more resources towards water? How about we get those systems, make sure that we industrialize? We are now talking to the likes of IDC to say, how do we industrialize and make sure that we generate these machines in the country and make sure that we create jobs as well. So it's not looking at one area, it's to say, how do we make sure that we generate jobs in the country? And also having technology, why tech? Because technology to monitor these machines. To deploy, maintenance is one of the key things. To deploy something and single use, people use it and that's it. But how about we have technology to monitor us with IoT, with artificial intelligence? But that is also introducing another job opportunity for the youth. Because these technologies that we are talking about, they are very new. So the youth can learn them, and then we can have skills that are developed to make sure that we manage these solutions.
It all sounds great on paper, and I'm hoping we'll be able to materialize it rather sooner than later. Thank you so much for popping by, speaking to us. Really do appreciate your time. Phakiso Mataitsane is the tech leader at Waterfela. Great innovations and ideas there. Hopefully we get it right, given what is at stake. Really appreciate you coming through. All right, whilst we continue our discussion in some ways, I'll get you a sense of what else you need to know here on the agenda.